setup issues, man. Thanks for crashing them. My wife's texting me that the video is blurry, so I need to fix that. I don't know if it's because I'm pasty white or whatever the deal is, but hey, we're here and we're live, everybody, you beautiful people. This is Gary Horn, and this is the NWA. This is a podcast celebrating the past, present, future, history, legacy, and tradition of one of the greatest pro wrestling entities of all time, talking about that National Wrestling Alliance. And my guest today, we are talking about episode number 3 of NWA Powerrr. This is just something that just happened, spur of the moment, by the way, you guys. It's just, we decided we're going to rewatch, do a rewind of NWA Powerrr, since there's not a lot of new content coming out, although this is Tuesday on the NWA channel, you can watch Super Powerrr. Meanwhile, we're going to be reviewing all of the episodes, and Mr. Robert Stinson is joining me today. Hello, Mr. Stinson.
Hello, Gary, and hello, Champ. Happy day 567 in this very important historic title reign. So love to bring that up every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Our Champ joining us in the chat, asking if I just came from my other job as a pirate or an extra from Sons of Anarchy. No, my wife actually, literally just before this, was bitching about me wearing headbands all the time lately because my hair was getting so long. I actually tried to trim it up a little bit today. And anyway, but Robert Stinson here. I feel like I always have to say like your full name or Dr. Stinson or something like that.
Do that. I felt bad about like on my Twitter, it says Dr. Stinson because I do a lot of professional stuff through social media. And in my profession as a public educator, it's, you're expected to do that, but I hate it, man, because it's like doctors, just call me Rob, man. Every time you say doctor, it just reminds me how much student loan debt I have. So Rob, I'm Rob.
Yeah. So Nick Aldis is going to be, you should know you're going to make my wife super happy that you made fun of my headband, and she's in the chat too, it looks like. So thank you for that. But Rob messaged me and was like, are we wearing headbands for the show today, brother? And I was like, all right, hell yeah, we can do that. Let's do it. Let's put on headbands. And so here we are. And this is the first of 2 rewatches or reviews that I'm doing today. I'm doing this one with Rob. And then we're going to be doing another one tonight with my friend Madeline Hoptree. Maddie's going to join me, and she's getting with me on the time, and that's the only reason. She's doing something with her kids, so it might be 8:30 or 9 or 8 or something. I'll let you know as soon as I know. But that one's still happening. It's happening later. But anyway, so Rob, you're here to talk to me about episode 3. Now, a lot of the hashtag NWA fam probably already know who you are. You've been pretty active on Twitter and everywhere. But tell us a little bit about your history with the NWA, just for those that don't know.
I'm from Georgia originally. I did spend a little bit of time in Fayetteville, North Carolina, but that's also very much NWA country, especially in the 80s. And growing up, and I've told this story before, but I don't want to sound like I'm like bashing my parents or anything. My brother and I had a very happy childhood, and that's because we pretty much raised ourselves and raised ourselves by watching the Atlanta Braves and the NWA Crockett Promotions on TBS. And so the NWA has been everything for me since like 1978, 79. My earliest memories were Gordon Soley and Buzz Sawyer, Tommy Rich, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, all those guys. And we've been very avid about this, my brother and I both, and followed it all the way up through the end, all the way up till the very last WCW Nitro. There was a period though, in some of those Nitro years, and then some of the years in the wilderness, where we felt like, gosh, man, those days there's something, just a reverence about those days. It was so perfect, and you had a lot of other stuff going on, and these last couple of decades have been a really rich time for wrestling, and what the WWF and WWE were doing up there. They had their own fan base and stuff, and it's like I remember alluding to the 30 for 30 episode they did on Flair, where the commentator says, I like that stuff, I liked Hogan and all those guys, but I really felt Ric Flair. I felt what was going on in the NWA, and that's how it was, and for many years that was lost. And I started to kind of get that feeling again, like during Adam Pearce's reign. And then certainly when Billy Corgan entered the picture in the reign of Tim Storm, and then Nick Aldis just took it to like an incredible, like the reverence that we felt for Flair. We're like, man, he's defending. There's no way in the world he's losing it. If he's going to lose, it's going to be seismic. It's going to be a seismic anomaly. It's going to make the newspapers. That's how we feel again about Flair. And I want my kids to have that same sense of feeling of like, this is really culturally important. And so that's kind of a little bit about my history. I just think the NWA is, you always say it's one of the greatest entities. I want to know what the argument is for the other. What's greater than that? It is the greatest entity. And Billy and David Lagana, Tim Storm, Joe Cephas, Nick Aldis have brought that back. And so we just want to be part of that. And I want my family to be a part of that. And we have made it a part of our weekly lives. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear that you're including your family in that. And it feels like, oh man, if I had a kid, yeah, NWA is where it's at. Like as far as this is the wrestling I'd want somebody to grow up on. I'm trying to think that I always say like one of the entities, because I feel like there's always an argument like for WWE and all of that stuff, which is no question to me, but we're in a weird situation, a weird spot where the NWA shows up. It's that a lot of people are coming in that were fans from the past that kind of fell off of wrestling. And now you've got the situation of they're returning to the NWA, but there's also these younger fans that have only known WWE probably, and they've seen AEW sprout up and everything, but they see this NWA thing and the setup, the logistics of the whole studio wrestling thing and everything. And it's probably like super foreign to them and they don't know what it's about. So they're trying to like wrap their brain around what the NWA is. So it's just kind of this, I don't know, like I never know for sure who I'm talking to. So I try to like make it open out there for whoever jumps in, like this is one of the greatest wrestling entities of all time. And at least there's a history.
I don't have to be anti-WWE or anti-AEW. Those are all great. There are great things about all of those. I watch it, I watch it as much as I can, but I'm very pro NWA. I mean, it's the one thing that I think, and you hit about it, like with the whole family thing, is like, for me, there's a lot of things that kind of push that line a little bit. And even in the NWA from time to time with the language, I feel like, partly as a parent, partly as an educator, that if it's not appropriate for kids, it's not worth digesting for me either, but the NWA, with Billy Corgan, family is very much part of his plan. And I think that, and historically, the NWA has always, up until some, the Attitude Era with WWE and some of the stuff that was drawn out by the NWO invasion and WCW, I feel like the product that we've had here has always been something that I'm very comfortable with digesting, and my kids digesting as well. And, and we learn a lot. I mean, listening to like your podcast with Marty Bell, or some of the stuff that we've done with like Nick Aldis and all that on Piper's Notes, there is this common thread of theater, rock, music, just expression and art that is just so vibrant in the NWA. And this might just be personal bias, but I just, I feel it predominantly here. And there are elements of it in other promotions too. And like I said, I don't have to be against anything else. They're all good things, but the NWA, man, they have like cornered the market on all this stuff. And we're in it, man. We're in it for the long haul.
Well, you bring up an excellent point. I mean, one thing that I was trying to do this morning before I had everything else going on, the thing that I love about the NWA the most, and it wasn't even, I wasn't sure how it would be when I jumped in, is this community, this fan base that we have. I mean, people are so passionate about it. And you mentioned that here. This morning, I was just like trying to retweet everything I could. And it was like trying to catch everything I could about the NWA that was popping up. We had my guest for episodes 1 and 2, Will Martin, who's a brand new NWA fan, and he's trekking his way back through the 10 Pounds of Gold series right now, and he's doing a daily video about it. There's what Adam Rotella is doing. There's what Jason Callie, I tried to repost what he was doing with the Alliance blog, and he actually posted something really good. If you guys haven't seen it, please go back and check it out. I retweeted it. It is about the rising tide lifting all ships, and just talking about how he's been doing a blog about the NWA for 10 plus years. That guy's been doing it back during that Adam Pearce period you were talking about before. And when he said like nobody cared, and now a lot of people care, but he doesn't want to, be dismissive of the new people. He wants people to enjoy the product. And so it's all about just everybody coming together and lift this thing up. And that's what I love. That's why we use that hashtag NWA fam. Yeah. You are a member of that. You are doing Piper's Notes, which recently just dropped with the champ, Nick Aldis, on the show. I've been a guest on there. You've had Thunder Rosa, and man, it's a really, really cool show. I love that concept. And
we've got episodes coming up with Zicky Dice, with May Valentine, a couple of other guys that we're trying to work out, one with Nikita Koloff right now. I've got a couple of like rock stars that are coming in, but it's, it really is like you said, this is about the community, and I feel like, there are several of you that I've seen in person, but not really met, that I feel like I know you guys very, very closely. And again, like, no other, this level of interaction between the community and the talent. There was a podcast that Josephus, and he doesn't do a lot of podcasts, man. He's very rare, but he did a very,
believe me, I know.
Back in August,
I've been pestering him.
We posted, yeah. He mentioned is like, we have to remember that wrestling is a consumer sport, and so there has to be. It's healthy to have this connection between the family and or the community and talent. NWA is the only one that does that. Every once in a while, Chris Jericho will retweet something, and that's pretty cool. But I've had Nick Aldis ask me, hey, is there a way that I can help out with digital classroom instruction at your school? Because he knows what we've done and how important the NWA is at our particular school. And, just the graciousness that Zicky Dice and Thunder Rosa has shown towards us. They don't have to do that. They can charge a premium like some guys do to come on, but they do this because they serve the community. And I think like people like Thunder Rosa and Nick Aldis and Tim Storm, I think I've used this phrase or this analogy before. They're like very much like statesmen, they're placed here and just by providence that they're guiding us through this particular time, and it's an unusual time. But I couldn't think of a better situation right now and a better promotion to be then under the hands of a Thunder Rosa and a Tim Storm and a Nick Aldis right now, man. They're just perfect. And this is the preeminent brand, and it's going to continue to rise and elevate, and they elevate it. So
yeah, I can't think of a better I don't know another company that has this amount of passion. Sure, you get it out of WWE and that sort of thing, but for such a small promotion right now, the NWA has people like actively trying to create, not only just creating new content, but different kinds of content, like just different ideas, but with the NWA base. And it's not like we ignore everything, or at least all of us don't ignore everything else going on in the wrestling world, but it's just it's interesting to me, just the drive that everybody has and the drive to post and constantly talk about the NWA online. It only airs on Tuesday nights, and right now, besides this week, it hasn't been all brand new content, but still, I feel like the conversation every day is happening about the National Wrestling Alliance.
It's like everybody is teamed up here. You've got individual wrestlers putting out content, Thunder Rosa, Aaron Stevens. They're putting out all this content to sustain and keep the population, the community nourished. And then you've got fans doing the same thing, putting out content. And it's like, yeah, Tuesday's the day. That's the day that everybody, at the Stinson house, we all close in at 6:05 and we're glued in on that TV and we're in the chats afterwards and all that. But during the week, the talent and the community is putting out sustaining content. And there's just nothing like that, man. It's just amazing. This is the best time to be a wrestling fan.
I agree. And this will be the point where I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that we're regularly putting out content here on This is the NWA at the NWA Pod. If you're here right now and you haven't already, hit like on that video, hit subscribe on the channel, hit the bell icon, and it gives you alerts every time we go live like this, even if it's last minute. And we just feel like maybe me and Rob decide we just want to shoot the breeze about the NWA, you can jump right on. You'll get an alert on your phone or your device, whatever. Rob, we're actually here to talk about, because we're doing, I've named it the Corn Stream. We're talking about episode number 3 of NWA Powerrr. We're binging it. My goal is to have different people come in and talk to me about it. I mean, people may show back up like yourself or something. You're always a reliable source here, so I appreciate that. And you've seen all the episodes already, so it doesn't require you, like Maddie. It doesn't require you to watch all the way, was my thought. Maddie is coming in, like, she is brand new to this thing, so like I can't. Like, she has to catch up with us. So she's working her way through, and she's going to try, because she's already texted me and was like, when are they doing this in Atlanta again? I want to go back. I want to go to Atlanta. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm glad that's what I want to hear. But she was in this place of like bored and just getting kind of down. Like, what can I do? And I'm like, do you want to be a part of this thing? Like, we have a vibrant community, and do you like wrestling? She's like, well, I used to watch it all the time when I was a kid, and I like Sting and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, dude, like, watch NWA Powerrr. It's easy. It's free. It's right there for you. And she's doing it. And now she wants to jump on and talk about it. And so,
man, she doesn't know what she's getting into. She's going to be hooked.
I agree.
Be a devotee for sure.
So Rob, I haven't actually met you in person, but I know, or maybe we briefly did, or I don't even remember, but you were at the tapings the last time, right?
Right, correct.
And was that your first time at the actual NWA tapings?
Man, we bought tickets for the second to last taping, and then I'm also the athletic director at Ridgeland High School. And so when things come up, a lot of times I have to be there and I have to respond. So we bought tickets for the first weekend, the weekend before the last weekend, and we weren't able to come. We weren't able to use those, and ended up giving them to somebody else or something like that. And then, but we made it to the last one, and now we're at the point where there's no way we're missing a taping. I told Tanya, we were talking last night. She's like, I feel like I'm not involved. It's like, you're working. I plug you quite a bit. I put you over, and you're welcome to come on. And this is, I want you to be very much a part of this, and you know what's going on. But I just thought it's like, you have to understand, when the tapings happen, we're going to be there. This is just not a discussion. I'm going to take vacation days. We're going to be out from here on out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it just, from the very first one I was at, I was like, well, this is a thing I do now. This is just the way it is. I'm going to be at these tapings, no matter what I have to work out. I was so bummed when they got canceled, because I'm like, this was supposed to be a regular part of my life now. Like, I just go to Atlanta and I hang out for a weekend and pay-per-views and NWA tapings. That's my thing. But
Piper, it's before. I mean, she knew we were under quarantine, but like the night of the 19th, she was like, "Aren't we supposed to be going to the NWA today?" I'm like, "Oh, baby, all that shut down, man. We're gonna have to. Lagana is gonna hook us up with something else, and this will happen. It'll come back." But
well, and the part of the reason I brought it up, because obviously I'm a huge fan of Piper's Notes, a huge fan of you. The reason I was wondering about that is because. So you wouldn't have been there during this episode. And it's funny to me because I didn't even intend this, and I don't even know that we did, but when we landed you for episode 3, just what the content featured on the show was, I was like, wow, this is pretty perfect for Rob to show up on.
Yeah.
Because you get a nice look at Aaron Stevens, you get the very first promo for the question mark, you get like, it's kind of interesting. Like, I was like, this is a weird
episode, man.
For those that don't know, Robert Stinson is there the very first time, or when he was there, the very first time we saw him, he and his whole family were dressed up like Aaron Stevens and the question mark with like the Mongrovian karate gear on and everything. It was pretty amazing.
Well, Gary, just so you know, man, those weren't costumes. We paid our $99.99 per week to take our Mongrovian karate lessons. So Piper has broken the Mongrovian oath to earn her 4th degree. I don't care what Aaron Stevens said in the last episode of Mongrovian Unmasked. And then Petra's about to put on her yellow stripe on her white belt. So she's mastered the first 3 forms. So those aren't costumes, man. That's a shoot.
Yeah, that's good, man. I am impressed, and remind me never to mess with you and your family, because that's we know Mongrovian karate is the most lethal art form.
Oh yeah.
Martial arts form out there. So let's dive into this episode. Let's talk about it a little bit. So this episode is episode number 3. NWA Powerrr, obviously been out for 3 weeks now, and this episode's called Twilight of Tim Storm. We'll get to why, but it opens up with some fan reactions, which I like. I liked where they were doing that, just showing like all of the people busted out. You've seen like in past stuff like Wrestling Days and everything. We saw our friend J Cal on this episode talking about the NWA, a bunch of different people. It was cool. I don't know. I think that's probably the genesis of like where you really get that vibe, and that NWA fam is that they're including the fans, like the fan reactions and that sort of thing. I really dig that. And I can't remember. I feel like they kind of got away from that a little bit, but I wish I feel like that's a positive thing, although they are including it in the Circle Squared stuff now.
Right. They've broadened out so much to include some of those things. One other thing I was going to point out that I like with those intros in season 1 is, and I don't know if you've ever been able to go back and watch any of the old NWA on TBS Saturday night episodes. When they would come on, they would always have these stars, you know, and that famous music. So they do that on Powerrr. They do that. If you go back and look at these fan reactions, you'll have the stars coming in the background, and that's a little nod to the old shows that used to come on 605 on Saturday nights with the stars coming at you. And so that's just a cool little touch. And like with our friend and the family that's coming on this afternoon or this evening to watch, I would encourage her, after she watches it once, to go back and watch it a second time too, because then you pick up on a lot of the very clever subtleties that you don't pick up in that first watch, you know. Like just an example, like the episode, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the famous Mongrovian national anthem episode. You know, I've seen that a million times. I just happen to be watching it back, and I see you and Rotella and in the background doing this, and then you do this little, you know, wiping the tears away from your eyes. And I'm like, dude, that is freaking brilliant. I guarantee you that was deliberate. You know.
Oh yeah, I was super into it on the Mongrovian national anthem, and that was definitely those were real tears for me, because I had just, it's the first time I'd really heard his voice, you know, like especially his singing voice, you know. Sure. And he's limited in his English, so it was just it was nice to just hear him really like what he sounds like in his native tongue, and so it was a beautiful national anthem. Rivals the US's. Not many do. So so we get a recap of the past episodes with Joe Galley probing Camille to speak and simultaneously irritating Nick Aldis. Galley shows up to say on the screen that he's been informed by his producers that he can't ask about that anymore. He's not supposed to do it. Nick Aldis is going to do an interview with him again today, but Camille is off limits. Lay off it, Joe. Which you'll hear me yell in this episode. But he just he's just announcing that he's aware of that. He thinks his job is to be a journalist, but whatever. Anyway, so were you watching from episode 1 originally, Rob?
Man, I was watching from the Aldis Crusade, man. Even before that, I started watching. I mean, I followed Billy Corrigan back before, back in the Impact days and all that stuff. And so when he started the 10 Pounds Project, I was watching from day one, man. I was forcing my wife, Tanya, who's very gracious, and she's into it. Don't get me wrong, but I was like, man, you got to see this, man. You catch this out. Tim Storm, he's a teacher. This is cool. And then Nick Aldis, who I'd seen before and I'd always respected. I mean, this is a guy who's had some. I always felt like Nick Aldis was going to be a major player somewhere. Like, this guy's a guy that's going to be a defining champion. But as soon as he emerged in the whole 10 pounds of gold series, boom, it took off, man. It was like, that was the essential piece that put it over.
Nick Aldis, by the way, in the chat saying that the question mark also brought him to tears. So take that how you want. But cool. All right. So Cordy and Joe Galley are opening up the show, and Kingston shows up. Eddie Kingston. Oh God, this is a guy, by the way, who blows me away every single time I see Eddie Kingston. I love that guy so much. He's one of the guys I'd love to get on this show for an interview sometime. Like, he is just brilliant, very intimidating gentleman. But he shows up, and he kind of wants to be respectful to Jim Cornette, but says, "Give me the mic. Like, I got to talk." And he says, "We're not here to like talk. We're not here to like just yell at each other. We're here to fight. We're here to gouge. We're here to do all these things." And my boy Homicide, like if Homicide saw these guys, he might just, and it gets bleeped out, but the crowd doesn't let it slide. So it's funny. He mentions stabbing him up. And I remember being there with my wife, Jennifer, at the time. No, she's still my wife, but at the time of this taping, and we were there, and people are chanting, "Stab him up, stab him up," and I'm like, can that happen? Like, that's a brutal chant. that was as close as we've gotten to ECW so far. Like, I'm like, why are they chanting? They're chanting for someone to get stabbed.
And they warn us, man. They warn us in there in the studio about our language and our chants, man.
Yeah. But so Keith is just like, they're lucky we didn't catch. He's mad at the Dawsons basically for the interference in the last week, and he's saying they're lucky we haven't seen them in the parking lot yet. We want them. We're trying to find them, and they walk away and say, just we're basically looking for them. I'm kind of rambling there, but how do you feel about Eddie Kingston and that whole feud, the Dawsons even?
You're gonna have to rein me in here, as you have learned by now in the few months that we've gotten to know each other. I can be long-winded. I love Eddie Kingston, man. Eddie Kingston, I think, gosh, man, his promos are like, going back to the thing where like I like this, but I feel this. I don't think anybody can listen to an Eddie Kingston promo and say they don't feel that. The way, and this one is one of his best because he gets that mic and his like piercing eyes are just looking into the camera, like so, and you feel like you said, intimidated. Even Cornette, man, like Cornette feels intimidated. He alludes to some heat that Homicide and Cornette had there between each other very briefly, that some of you guys will know about. I'm not quite sure what he's referring to, but I love Eddie Kingston, man. This guy, not only his in-ring work, but just he's got to be, man, one of the 2 or 3 best talkers out there. And I could just buy compilations of just his promos. I mean, he is amazing talker, believable, just fierce, intimidating. He is what's up, man. He is what's up.
The thing with him too is, and I could say the same thing about Nick, maybe even Tim. So I don't want to take anything away from anybody, but one of the things I love that you miss in a lot of other wrestling is that Eddie there was the promo, I think it was the week before, where Will and I were talking about Kyle Davis was trying to get an interview with Homicide and Eddie Kingston, and Eddie's just like, let me speak. And he's just like in the camera and yelling. But typically Eddie Kingston, when you get him to a point, he gets fired up and he can raise his voice. But one of the things I love about he and a Nick Aldis promo are that they're not always yelling everything. Like, our boy Will mentioned Dolph Ziggler in his video from earlier today, and I do love Dolph Ziggler. I think Dolph Ziggler's a great worker, but he's fun to watch. But he, like every promo Dolph Ziggler has, he's just like screaming at you, and it's always been one of the things that kind of grated me about him. Not to be disrespectful, but just that, like, you don't always have to yell, man. Like, yeah. and watching a Nick Aldis promo or an Eddie Kingston promo. And the guys, like, they just talk to you straight. Like Eddie Kingston will yell enough to get your attention, like to like snap here, like I'm speaking now. And then he's just like you said, that eye contact, like just staring straight into the camera and telling you exactly what he thinks about you. And I just love it.
So good. It feels like a beat poet, almost like you feel like every time every time he talks, you feel every bit of pain, every turmoil, every trauma he's ever experienced. You feel like you're participating in it. And then like with Nick Aldis, I feel like when he comes out and addresses us, it's like we're about to hear a State of the Union address. This is an important statement from an important statesman. And so both of them, you're right, they don't have to rely on the rant and rave, and they don't have to rely on a lot of theatrics because they bring authority with what they say. You know, it's like when Kingston talks and when Aldis talk, they speak with authority. And I think, and you're right, Tim Storm, I think when you talk about the big three speakers in the NWA who speak with authority, it's those three, no doubt, man. Kingston, Aldis, and Kingston and Storm.
Well, and it's like with Nick, I think it's this idea of like there's this level of confidence that he has being the champion. And so that if he's talking, he expects that you're going to listen. So he doesn't need to amp up for you. Like you should be respecting him and shutting up for a minute, like listening to him talk. And so it's almost even a different dynamic, but the same kind of philosophy. Absolutely. And only a guy like so far that we've seen, it's like a guy like Marty Scurll that like gets under his skin so much with like the blatant like lack of for lack of a better term, the lack of give a shit, that he'll just like jump in the ring and like show up on your show and all of this that like starts to rile up Nick a little bit more and more. You know what I mean?
And every now and again, you know, he'll let that explode. He'll show up on their show and just go freaking crazy on Flip Gordon or somebody, you know. But you know, when he's on before that, that sacred podium, you know, I mean, he is like, man, he is a statesman giving the State of the Union address as the head of state of the NWA, and it just carries that weight. But Kingston, man, gosh, man, it's like he is so you feel him, man. I don't know how else to put it. He just.
Yeah, RJ in the chat mentioned Tom Latimer too. I think Tom like is very aggressive. I guess he is kind of quiet, but like something about Tom is just imposing no matter what, dude. Like Tom is another guy who's he's so freaking big and just like,
yeah.
And I don't know, something about the way he speaks, you're just kind of like, okay, dude, like, I don't know. We're
Presbyterians, man. We're Presbyterians. And when we were in Allentown, Pennsylvania, right after I got out of the Army, we had a Presbyterian minister. And half the time I could not really hear the message or the sermon just because I was so like entranced by the accent. And Tom Latimer's accent is that, man. I was like, I don't care what he's saying. I just want to hear him talk, man. It's so cool. But you're right. He is a force too. He's another one that's a good. He's got a gift, man.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So next up, you mentioned earlier in the show, we get a matchup between Crystal Rose and Marty Bell. I believe this is the debut, if I remember correctly, of Marty Bell and Crystal Rose, obviously. But Marty kind of takes it to her. It's a nice little match. But Marty, of course, shining the brightest on this particular occasion, and takes out Crystal Rose with a pedigree, Pearl River plunge, whatever you want to call that move. And I don't know if she has a different name for it, but any initial thoughts on Marty Bell or anything?
Man, I love Marty Bell. I think she's just freaking sexy. She's got a good look. She's a great athlete. She's just cool, man. I love her ring attire. I really, honestly, like, I feel like Marty Bell's one of those ones who she's kind of been overshadowed quite a bit. But you know, I want to direct people to your podcast with her. One of the coolest people. And I've always been a Marty Bell fan. I felt like, you know, she was one of those ones who up there with Thunder Rosa and Allison Kay and Melina, I feel like she's in that mix. Like she would be a credible world champion. And I would love to see her. I don't think there's ever been a Dominican world's women's champion before. So I would love to see her make history at some point. Not to throw any shade on Thunder Rosa. I think Thunder Rosa's an amazing champion. But Marty Bell, man, she did it great. And like you said, she handed it to her opponent here in this match. I love, big Marty Bell fan, man.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. And yeah, I would love to direct people. It's on the podcast feed right now. I'll have to get some stuff up on it on the YouTube feed too. But that Marty Bell interview, if you come away not loving Marty Bell after that, and that's not me tooting my horn. It's just like, I was just there. I was the the vessel which she spoke through. Like she is an incredible person, and hearing her reverence for the history also of wrestling, and just like and her background and just how hard she's worked in general, Marty Bell will impress you. And I think she hasn't quite had the chance to really get all of that across on NWA yet on the television. Like she's there, don't get me wrong. Her friendship with Allison Kay has been kind of the forefront of her story so far. But yeah, well, I think once people learn more and more about Marty, like she's gonna rocket to the top. I love her.
I feel like too, like if quarantine had not shut everything down, I think that the way that stable of women with Melina and Thunder Rosa and Marty Bell, I think that really would have been elevated, and it's going to be elevated. Marty Bell's just got way too much. She's got whatever that it factor is, that intangible spark. She's got it, and she's going to be a major force in the women's division. She's one big part of why I feel like the women's division in the NWA is the most vibrant of any in the world, you know. And so I can't wait to see where they take her. It would not surprise me to see within the next year and a half, her having that women's world's title. She's been a tag champion with Jazz, you know. You alluded to that kind of thing, and she's had credible championship pedigree, but this is a woman who knows the sport. She knows her way around the ring. Great talker, great look, man. I love her, man. I can't say enough good things about her. Great match, great debut for her.
Yeah, you'll hear me say this time and time again. Anybody listening or watching, I put the women's division of NWA up against any other company, and I mean any other company. Like there is. To me, there is nothing quite like the NWA women's division. As far as women that are just presented with nice, there's the nice storylines, obviously, but just women that are presented as capable and tough, and just they've got this aura about them of they are also badasses there to fight for a championship. I think that's missing in almost every other division or every other company right now, like just the way that the presentation is in the NWA.
Yeah, I mean, you look like when you think like one of the things that the NWA brings is like the NWA is like it's athletic competition. And when you talk about Thunder Rosa, who's involved in MMA, you talk about Melina with her extensive Hall of Fame caliber pedigree, Marty Bell, who's wrestled all around North America, the Caribbean. I mean, these are legitimate competitors, and I put them up. I stack them up against any women's division anywhere. I put our NWA women anywhere against anybody. They're awesome, and Marty Bell's a big part of that. This was a great introduction to her.
One of the things that gets mentioned during this matchup is that we hear the Dawsons are going to be addressing Kingston and Homicide, which is cool. We get to, I love, it sounds so stupid, but I just would like to point out that I love that the storyline at least gets referenced. Like the announcers are still actually, I don't know, man. I feel like when I was so hooked into WWE the last little while I was hooked into there was just like this drop off of people caring about actual storyline, like what was going on. And so there's still like moving parts working on different levels at all times in the NWA. It's one of the things I love about them. Andrew McKinney, by the way, I should reference in the chat room saying you can't beat the women's division in the NWA. And it's all back to that wrestling philosophy. They're treated as athletes in a sport. So kind of echoing your sentiment there,
right.
Rob. I totally agree, Andrew, that is the thing. I mean, wrestling fans are able to suspend their disbelief. Like you just got to make it believable. Like it just, just try to at least make it seem like a competition. Like there's a goal here. Why are they there? What are they all going for? That kind of thing. Will mentioned, sorry, I keep going off on tangents here, but I loved in one of Will Martin's videos. He's at Hey It's Will with 1L. He talked about how he was just put off when he first started watching the 10 Pounds of Gold series about how Tim Storm was defending against Nick Aldis, but then like immediately traveled over to face Josephus. And he was like, well, why is Josephus in this feud? wait a minute. No, this actually makes sense. There are multiple people competing for the same goal.
Right.
Like they would, he's like, I'm just used to, like, it's like one guy's interested and that's all there is. And it's like, that's the
Right.
storyline.
I mean,
He's like, no, it makes sense. This is,
when you're at the top of the mountain, everybody's gunning for you. So even, you know, thinking back like to the other night, we were doing the Starcade watch. Was it Starcade or it was Starcade, right?
Starcade 88, I believe. Yeah.
We were talking about Starcade 89, the night of the Future Shock with the round robin tournament.
Right.
That was the one where Sting wins that. I think you haven't seen that yet, so I'm sorry, I just spoiled that for you.
You just ruined it.
Sorry.
It. Like however many years ago that was.
Yeah.
Like 30 years ago, you ruined it.
You know, Sting was a member of the Four Horsemen. And so, so this is like everybody wants to, you're not in the business unless you want the world title. We're going to get to some of that with Tim Storm later in this really important episode. But you think like with strictly business today, and again, I don't want to spoil too much for people who haven't watched ahead, but you got to think like Tom Latimer is not going to be content to just be a world tag champion. No shade on the tag division. That's very important too. I mean, for some people, that's even more important. But Tom Latimer is another guy that could easily fit into that world championship title picture, along with a Josephus and a Tim Storm and an Eli Drake. And so, you know, it makes total sense to me that, you know, when you've got this triangulation of feud between Aldis and Josephus and Tim Storm, because everybody's in this to reach that mountaintop, man. Everybody is. Why wouldn't you be?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I keep mentioning, but another thing Will was talking about in our episode 1 and 2 review is just talking about how James Storm, we were discussing, like, he's interested in what Nick Aldis is holding, but he's holding the NWA National Championship at the same time. Mm-hmm. And Eli's like in there talking to him, and I believe it's episode 2, just about like, hey, don't write this thing off. This thing means you've got the ticket to the big one. And so, you know, this is important. And Will was talking about how impressed he was that this is how, you know, how this was set up. And my biggest reference that I had for when I was a kid is I always knew the Intercontinental title. The Intercontinental title was one of my favorite championships of all time, like that 80s version of the Intercontinental title. But it was always because generally they were really good wrestlers that held that thing. But it was also like, for instance, when Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels won the Intercontinental title, that was a huge deal because it meant that was like their key to open the door to the main event status, like to the upper card status. Like that was it. You know, once you knew they had that one, that was the step. Like it was like, oh, now they're considered top dogs in this company. And I feel like that got kind of lost with, like, say, even the Intercontinental title and lots of others. But it's nice to see the national championship being treated that way, that like, yeah, this is a big deal because now this person is also up there ready to compete with Nick Aldis. Yeah.
It's lost today, certainly when you've got this like explosion of all these titles, everybody's got a title. And the bottom line is this, man. Wrestling there are a lot of intelligent people that are wrestling fans. I know it gets this character of this being this redneck thing. That is, I'm deeply offended. And I think Will said something about that this morning on his show when people denigrate.
Oh, the Top Segura thing.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or you know, but when you look at like the people, the personality, the talent, Josephus, Nick Aldis, you know, David Lagana, Billy Corgan, Mick Foley, Raven, these are highly intelligent people. And Lagana and Corgan are doing something very, very deliberate with their talent selection because, like you said, back with the Intercontinental belt, these belts serve a purpose. It's like, you know, the national title and the television title, they are workers' championships. They are legitimate titles that people prize, and they are meant for workers to defend routinely before the public. The world belt's not that way. Nick Aldis doesn't need to go on and wrestle every show. He appears, yeah. But it's like, you know, you think back in the prime time of boxing with like Mike Tyson and Spinks and Larry Holmes. These guys defended the belts 3 times a year maybe, and it was a major cultural athletic event with the banners, just like what they did at Crockett Cup 1 with Skrull and Aldis.
Right,
That's something that the NWA has recovered. Nick Aldis doesn't have to defend that belt. Now, I know historically there's been this like 30-day rule, and Nick Aldis went on the crusade. He didn't have to do that, but he elevated the brand by that. But you've got the world title that is like this grandiose event, and when you defend it, it's kind of like a coronation event. You know what I mean? But the national title, the TV title, those are workers' titles. They're very, very important. They put you on that pedestal to get to that mountaintop, and they serve their purpose. And so I think that Corgan and Lagana have just been brilliant the way they've crafted this. You see a lot of stuff on Twitter about we need more belts, we need more belts. No, we don't. We've got the perfect amount of belts, and we've got the Crockett Cup on top of that to sustain and elevate. Every single one of these belts, from the tag belts to the cup to the national and TV titles, they push the brand upward. Everything they do is specifically designed, scientifically crafted to elevate the brand and elevate everything upward. And I think it's just perfect how it is.
Yeah. And Michael Manning is in the chat, and he asks, or he mentioned that the third degree might make that title just as important as the 10 pounds of gold. I was curious of your thoughts on that.
My thoughts on the third degree. Aaron Stevens has beaten everybody he's had to, just like Nick Aldis has. People say, again, people who are not, who I wouldn't consider to be intelligent, who want to denigrate the status of the NWA, who is into Aldis beating. I'm like, dude, he's beaten literally everybody before his reign and during his reign. Everybody he's had to. Well, as a matter of fact, so is Aaron Stevens. He's defended the title successfully. I mean, you can put asterisks on this and that, but he is a credible, real, legitimate personality. He does bring humor to it. He brings a little comic relief, but I like him as champion, as national title. I can't wait to see Aldis and Aaron Stevens lock horns, man, honestly.
Oh, I wonder if that's going to happen down the road. That'll be interesting for sure.
Inevitable. It's inevitable.
I don't think you can get goofy with Nick Aldis, so.
No, I think suddenly things are going to reality's going to hit him when he steps in that ring with the dealer. So.
Oh man, no, I said the same thing with as far as Colt Cabana. Like I remember in the chat when people were talking about the China match, the Nick Aldis and Colt Cabana, that people were complaining about Colt being a comedy wrestler, and I was like, well, he's gonna straighten up real quick. He's gonna have to. Nick Aldis telling Roscoe in the chat to go back to bed. The grown-ups are talking, so that's nice.
That's exactly right. Yeah, go back to bed, Roscoe. No, I'm just kidding, brother.
Roscoe, you're getting acknowledged by the champ. That's a plus. I saw him retweet the post about our live show here, and he said that it's an intelligent discussion, and Gary's there too, or something along the lines. Nice. When it comes to the champ, man, no press is bad press. So you get if the champ throws shade on you, that's a good thing. That's how I'm choosing to look at it. So, so Marquez gets the Dawsons at the podium. He asks them why the attack, and the Dawsons just basically say stuff happens. They're basically just trying to establish themselves, and they'll fight anybody. They don't care, anytime, anywhere, but not Kingston and Homicide. Just anybody else but those two. Dawsons, the damn Dawsons. That's what I used to yell at them. You damn Dawsons.
Huh.
Yeah.
Man, the Dawsons, they're an enigma to me, because I really want to like them. I like their look. I like how they talk. I didn't really get that whole we'll fight anybody but them, because tough guys don't really do that, and they kind of sell themselves as tough guys. So, creatively, I'm not sure about that. And of course, you and I know how this kind of story ends with them. I don't want to jump too forward. So the Dawsons, man, I feel like, and I don't want to. I mean, we can shoot straight here, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the Dawsons are like a missed opportunity, almost. I don't know. What do you think?
I feel like the Dawsons at least wanted to really get behind them. I was doing my job. I hated them because they were dirty players in the game, but you know, I don't know what their story is or where they're going. I've seen them on Twitter recently. So this is, we're shooting straight. I don't know what their status is exactly and how they feel, but some things I've seen kind of iffy with like even posts on the replying to the NWA and Legata. So they've seemed very bitter. And so I don't know exactly where it goes with the Dawsons. So
it's just weird, like, because I think, like, you think back, like, to the great tough men tag teams in the past, like, and I think to, like, in Ring of Honor with, like, the Briscoes, or you think back to, like, Dick Murdoch and Dusty Rhodes. These are teams that would never say, I'll take anybody but them. You know, it's like, hey, and excuse my language, and Piper's not in here, so it's like, somebody's going to get their ass kicked. It might be us, but it's going to happen. I feel like that's what the Briscoes should be. I mean, excuse me, not the Briscoes, the Dawsons. And I just felt like they fell short there, man. Like this is this one segment in this episode, which I think is like one of the most important episodes in all of Powerrr. I think this is the one episode that kind of fell short of the mark for me. I don't know. But I'm teaching on it. I mean, I'd like to hear comments, and I can be taught. So.
No, I think that's an excellent point. Actually, I hadn't considered it that way. I do think that maybe the goal here is you're getting to see that the Dawsons are tough. They're legitimate competition, but they also have this like side of them that they're like, they're the typical bullies, you know, that you get punched what's in the face. And then you're like, like, I'll just talk from over here. Yeah. And, and I don't know. That's how they come across to me as far as they go.
Yeah.
Right after their promo, you get the first Thunder Rosa promo, which I was super stoked for. I saw her. Dude, I knew Thunder Rosa before I ever saw Thunder Rosa. That feels like some biblical stuff or something. But I was on social media and I kept seeing images of Thunder Rosa and like clips of Thunder Rosa because Thunder Rosa is very good at social media and all of that stuff. So I saw her, and I remember when Powerrr was coming along and they were like putting together a roster. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but as Arn Anderson would say, toot toot.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. I was calling for her. I was like, get Thunder Rosa. You have to have Thunder Rosa at NWA. Like, she seemed perfect for it. And so to see her clips streaming there and hearing that she was going to be in the NWA, I remember being very excited for that.
Did you ever watch any of like the Lucha Underground stuff? Did you ever follow?
I tried to watch it when it was on Netflix, but then it got removed like before I ever finished it. So I just never, never did really.
She was there. She was a prominent player. Her and Sammy Guevara were, and they did the Spanish flag thing. And I was like, gosh, man, she is in it. I love Thunder Rosa. Her look, man, her style. I love the whole MMA thing that she did with Lagana and all them. I could see her being another Mildred Burke, like having like a Nick Aldis status reign. I love Marty Bell, and I like to see that too. I'm very torn when it comes to that because I'm like, Thunder Rosa is over. She is Piper's like absolute number one favorite wrestler, and she carries that reverence too. But she is so freaking cool, man. And this promo, this was money, bro. I mean, you can't watch this and not be like, gosh, I'm compelled automatically,
Yeah, Roscoe pointing out that she was called Cobra Moon in Lucha Underground. For those that, if you want to Google her or something, it was Cobra Moon. But I'm 100% with you. There's just something that she is put together as a character. Like she is she's ready to go. Like it's outstanding to me, just honestly. And this is no knock on anybody. It's outstanding to me that she's not like on a roster somewhere like AEW or WWE, somebody that would have,
thankfully that, she's with us now.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I should specify. Yeah. Thankfully that didn't happen for us, but it's just, it's like, oh man, it's just that, you look at the NWA as the scrappy underdogs. And so you're like, there's these people, these billionaires throwing out all this money to just like everybody and trying to buy up all the talent so they can't go anywhere else. Yeah. And then you're like, some of the folks like at Aldous, like at Thunder Rosa, like that kind of thing, you're like, dang man, you guys are missing
Hey,
out.
man.
Like, what did you do?
Did you see the panel discussion with Aldous and DDP and
Yeah, you sent it to me. Yeah.
okay, right. So in that comment, or in that panel discussion, the moderator makes the point. He's like, talking to Aldous, he says, everything you do seems so important. It feels like the most important thing. And I feel like, to take to your point, you know, that everybody's buying all this talent. We've got this talent of like between Thunder Rosa and Nick Aldis, who both of them have been on Piper's Notes. I'm so humbled by that. They like are the coolest champions. They're the most serious champions in all of pro wrestling in the entire world. I don't care what promotion. And so they're just them being the champions make, not to mention all the just the layers and layers of talent and relevance beneath them, but that's just their reigns make the NWA the most important thing. Thunder Rosa feels like the most important women's champion, you know?
Yeah, I mean the love that she gets online and everything, it's quite impressive. And so we'll get to talk more about Thunder Rosa as this goes on. But your boy Aaron Stevens came out next, and he's hanging out with David Marquez. He was apparently it was supposed to be Tim Storm, but Aaron took his place there, and the no eye contact rules in effect.
Right.
Yeah, and he says there's the look at us chant, so he's obviously already impacting the crowd. Captain Morgan chants happen. He says, "I'm not Captain Morgan," while he props his foot up on the side of the podium there, or on the stage, and he's Tropical Pirates, which is available Blu-ray and DVD and VHS in Romania.
In Romania, yeah.
VHS.
And I'm told beta. They have it in beta in Romania now.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I still haven't seen the movie. Been looking, but it doesn't appear to be streaming anywhere.
Amazing,
or I can find it.
Amazing film.
Okay. And so we get a B-roll of Tropical Pirates, a little trailer there. I can tell you that is Sherry Shaw, one of the stage directors that he's talking to, the woman that you see the back of her head there. She's looking at him. I just like to give her a shout out where I can. She wrote his theme music that he has at the pay-per-views and stuff.
What's her Twitter handle?
It's Astaria. It's like, I don't know if it's Stastaria or something like that.
She's one of the first people. Her and Maureen were two of the first people that reached out to us personally after that taping. Was like, hey man, we're so happy you guys came, man. It's just thank you so much, and tweeted.
That's cool.
And they still
still
converse with us. So
she's great. She actually is, just for what it's worth, just to show you like the to a point you made way earlier, just about the talent level on the NWA. I mean, she is a musician and has songs that are like, I mean, she has music videos and stuff. You can find her on YouTube and everywhere, but she has songs that appear on like iZombie and all these other CW shows and stuff like that. But she's there being a stage director for the NWA, which I think is kind of cool. Like she's a very talented lady. So anyway, so one of my things is when I'm there live, I take like random photos of her and I'll post them up on Instagram. And I'm like, spy it on Sherry Shaw is her name. So
love her. One thing I wanted to point out on the Aaron Stevens bit, he makes the comment, I don't know if you remember, says something like, this is the episode where he says, like, as an actor, I have more chops than Ric Flair. You remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah, that's a good one. Nobody's going to say that Aaron Stevens isn't clever.
Dude, he's...
I don't think. Like
Aaron Stevens, I think there's a big part of the wrestling community, and even within the NWA fam, that they don't feel comfortable with the whole comic relief bit of it. But let's remember that Aaron Stevens is, first of all, he is a legitimate like wrestler. He is a legitimate talent in the ring. He's beyond his gimmick and all that stuff. So the comic relief for us is just gravy. And for me, like going back to the early thing with the whole NWA, with the community and the family orientation, like this is the kind of things that appeal to my kids. They see that, they love it. And I want them to be drawn in so that as a conduit to bring them into this universe of this amazing world of pro wrestling that the NWA is giving us. I think Aaron Stevens is providing it like just an indispensable service, man. He's great. We love him.
Well, it's interesting to me because Aaron Stevens seems to, you were complaining about the Dawsons previously and how they were willing to fight anybody except Kingston and Homicide. I think that the problem people have with Stevens is he seems to be a little flaky as far as
artist, man. He's an artist. He's misunderstood.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he's got to feel it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right.
Ducking people. He's got to feel it.
All right. Just curious what your take would have been on that. So
you're not going to trick me into throwing shade on the shooter. I love you, Gary. You're my brother, man. But we're in the Stevens.
Yeah. Well, hey man, just because we're friends doesn't mean I can't be a tough interviewer too. So I gotta hold your feet to the fire, so to speak. So
into
D-Man. Yeah, into the fire, exactly. D-Man is out next. D-Man Dan Parker is out. He's fighting Caleb Conley. It was nice to see Caleb. This one was just good for me because watching Caleb fight, was it Eli Drake? Was that who he fought in the previous episodes? I think it was. And Caleb took the L in that matchup, and you're like, dang, though, this guy is pretty talented. And this kind of worked for me. It was kind of another neat step for the NWA that Caleb gets the win here over D-Man.
D-Man, yeah.
Yeah, the D-Man, Dan Parker. And he gets the win. And so you see this step of like, all right, well, previously, Caleb might have looked like, and this is not a knock. Will and I kind of talked about this. Jobber is just as important as anybody else as far as the wrestling business goes. But if you wondered if Caleb was on that level, like he gets a win here. So it was nice to see him. He's elevated to a different step, even though he lost his debut match at NWA Powerrr. Here he is with a win. So it's nice to see that play out. And it was a good match, by the way. Both those guys are very good. And D-Man's on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. If anybody wants to check him out too, he's often over there.
For people who don't know, that's the Marquez promotion. It was kind of the precursor to the NWA. I love the D-Man. And I don't know this for sure, but I think that's like a Z-Man reference. So a little nod back to Tom Zink back in the day. And Caleb Conley, man, gosh, I like this guy. I think like he would fit in the TV title picture perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Caleb is a super talented individual and quite the career too. I've had the opportunity to interview him, and he's a good dude. He's really good.
It's a good interview.
Yeah, thank you. And he's a great guy. So it's good to see him. He's working over at High Spots on the side too, like making kick pads and all this other stuff. Like he's just another one of these multi-talented people that just like, is busted their tails to make it in the wrestling industry.
All these guys are multi-talented, man. All of them are. I mean, you look at Nick Aldis is doing Panto. You look at Thunder Rosa, who's doing mixed martial arts, and she's got all this content. They did a review of like the Tiger King. It was hilarious. Her and Brian Rosa.
Oh yeah.
Every single one of these guys, Josephus.
Look at what Zicky Dice is doing now.
Zicky Dice, man. Gosh, I love it. Just so you know, in the Stinson house, Nick Aldis is number one because I say so, because I'm in charge. I'm the patriarch. I'm the patriarch in this house. So Nick Aldis is king here. But when it comes to Piper, man, she likes Nick Aldis. She was completely like starstruck by him when we talked to him. But she is enamored by Thunder Rosa and Zicky Dice. Just like enamored by them, man. They're so multi-talented and everything. So
they're both so colorful. Like it feels like Perfect Kid, not even like lowering them any, but it's just like those two characters are so like them as people, just bright and colorful and just out there. Like it's hard not to imagine that everybody would just be drawn to it. It's that bright flashing light. Like you're
when Zicky Dice really starts to get into this, I'd like to come back on and talk about like some of his stuff, because there were some things that he did later on, and no spoilers here, but like I was like, Zicky, I'm not really cool with that, bro. That doesn't like, I don't feel like that's natural for you, but we love Zicky Dice, man. He's so cool, so gracious, and he probably wouldn't want us to say that, but he really, really is. But Caleb Conley, man, like you said, this is a 5-tool athlete, dude. He's got mad skills in a lot of different arenas.
I should give a shout out to everybody that's in the chat room right now. I intended for Robert and I to talk for, I mean, I didn't have like a set amount of time, but I wasn't sure how long it goes, but we're going into an hour here. So I'd like to remind everybody.
Bad, my bad.
No, not your bad. Not your bad. We're having a good conversation. I think it's fine. And lots of people are in the chat. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you. All of you who are watching right now, and anybody who's listening to this later in the podcast, we appreciate you. I want to give a shout out to John Farmer, who's out there. For those that don't know, I'm going to give a spoiler right now. I don't even know if I should say this. That's Camille's daddy. So he's out there right now. He's watching. He's saying that Tropical Pirates sucked, so he was not a fan. And he said Strictly Business Part 2 is coming out in fall of 2020. So I'm excited to see what's in store there. But Roscoe's out in the chat. The champ's been here. James H. Jackson Jr. in the chat. Michael Manning. And so many more. Thank you so much for being here. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Hit the bell so you get notifications every time we're live, every time a video posts, and also hit the like button. It gets us in front of more people. We're grateful for everybody that joins us. I didn't mean to get too sidetracked there, Rob, but
no. Hey, speaking about John Farmer, Camille released some content, released some biographical content a week or so ago. It was like a week and a half ago, maybe. Amazing story. I love.
My God, I'm so glad you said that. Yeah. No,
he
Camille has
her dad in this, and she talks about Mr. Farmer and her mom and the support they had for her. So just shout out to John Farmer, bro. You are. Thank you for your contribution to the NWA, man. We love Camille. She's amazing.
My God. Like if we could just sit here and talk about parrots for a second. You know, I'm a big fan of you and my boy. Hey, it's Will. Good parrots, good people. And then, yeah, John Farmer, man, if you talk about somebody killing it, that dude did it, because Camille has turned out fantastic. She is a sight to behold, and I'm not being like a weirdo about it. I mean, she's a sight to behold, like as far as what she's accomplished. Like she is an icon for women to look up to. Like she is something else.
Mr. Farmer, if you're listening, I don't like to. I know that Camille doesn't like to be reached by personal contact, but we would love to have Camille as a guest to watch some rock and roll with us on Piper's Notes. If you know somebody who knows somebody, send me a shout out, brother. I would love to have Camille. Sorry to plug. Didn't mean to do that, but
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's what we're here for. This is all about lifting up that community. The hashtag NWA fam. Make sure you guys use that, because we're Rob and I have talked about it, and I think Dawn. We should shout out Dawn. She was part of that too. But NWA fam, we're trying to make that like a trending hashtag. Like that should be popular. Is somebody dying at your house? What was that?
Who, me?
Oh, I thought I heard something. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was over here. I don't know.
I hope that's just me here. I'm alone. Now you got me scared. I'm looking around like, oh, what?
Oh, I thought I heard something. I don't know. Michael Manning in the chat says, everybody I know I've shown the NWA to has been very impressed with Camille. Yeah,
yeah.
We haven't had enough Camille talk, but she was going to come up here pretty soon anyway. Yeah, Camille is as eye-catching as anybody on the NWA roster, I think. Like people dig Camille right when they see her. She immediately draws attention.
Let me make a point here. Like going back to the glory days, and I think we are back in the glory days, so don't get me wrong here, but like when you go back to like 1986, 87, 88, going back to like Starrcade that we watched the other night, every single thing in that show seemed important. It's not like we got this mid-card stuff and then we're just waiting on the big stuff. That's how the NWA feels. And Camille is a big part of that right now. Camille, Thunder Rosa, Zicky Dice, Ricky Starks, Marty Bell, all, everything, question mark, everything. They make every single segment feel compelling. You want to know, even if the title's not on the line, you want to know what is Camille really going to speak, man? Like, is she going to speak today? So it's like
they were able to build a whole episode around that.
Yeah.
Like a whole thing for a Tuesday night was around Camille's going to debut in a match and she's going to speak. And like that brings viewers. That's enough. That's all you need.
Yeah.
How many other women in wrestling get to carry that kind of weight? You know what I mean? Like as far as like just who they are, their personality, like people want to see that happen. Camille's money, man.
And they're doing it on personality, brother. I mean, they're not on, YouTube is a great platform, but they're not on network TV. They've built this enthusiastic, vibrant, very active, devoted following on the strength and weight of their authority and personality. And that's what, again, that's the NWA women's division. There's nothing like it. I don't put them against anybody. I don't care. Someone said here that they're too little. You're nuts if you think that Camille was too little.
Somebody said in the chat that Camille is too little.
Earlier, I think it was Roscoe just running his gums. I like Roscoe, but I think he was just like or something. But
come on, Roscoe.
Too little.
I mean, I know
you're crazy, dude. They're not. Allison Kay is not too little. Melina's not too little. Thunder Rosa is little, but she is. Man.
Thunder Rosa will whip that ass.
Oh, yeah, she will.
So, but no. I don't think anybody in the women's division is too little. They're all pretty tough chicks, especially when you meet them in person. They're quite capable. So I have no doubts about them. Hey, Joe Galley gets Tim Storm at the podium finally. Tim thinks Aldis and the NWA. This guy's pure class, right? Mm-hmm. Like he comes out, he's coming off his defeat. Lost the NWA championship or lost his last attempt at the NWA championship. And he says, my wife is texting me. We're authentic here, so I'm just going to tell you, my wife just texted me and said, don't go too long. And she's worried about me being too long-winded, so don't feel self-conscious, Mr. Stinson. No, it's not you. She's always on me about it. Like, don't talk too much.
I get it, man. My emotions take over, and it's like, I try to be as academic as I can be, but then next thing you know, we're just ranting and raving, just going stream of consciousness.
Dude, that's what we're here for, though. And then people show up in the chat like they are right now, and we're just sitting here having this conversation, and more people start showing up, and then like there's lots of us out here that just want to talk about wrestling, and it's Saturday afternoon, and we're all still kind of in quarantine, so it's it's whatever. What else are we gonna do? So Tim Storm, I was just going to point out that he's a class act, and he's out there, and he's thanking Nick Aldis and the NWA for the opportunity, even though he lost. And it's like nobody could be as genuine as Tim Storm. I just don't believe it. Like I even feel like John Cena tried, and people still rejected John Cena. But like Tim Storm is what the WWE wishes they would have had as far as acceptance of the character, like just a good hard-working dude who's doing a good job. And it's like that's exactly the gimmick that WWE wished they had with John Cena, and people were still like split on him. But nobody dislikes Tim Storm. Nobody. Not a single person. Even Nick Aldis doesn't dislike Tim Storm.
Yeah, correct.
He's just like, sometimes he's an ends to a mean, but that'll come later. But he doesn't dislike Tim Storm.
This is the most important segment in the show, man. In this episode, this speech by Tim Storm, where he comes out and gives props to Aldis, and he makes the thing that when you allude to when you go back and hearken to the great champions like Flair would say, like when he lost to Ronnie Garvin. We don't cry over spilt milk. We don't cry over spilt milk. Now you're the man. And to be the man, I've got to beat you. And that's essentially, Tim Storm is like, here, I'm not making any excuses. I'm not calling, putting the asterisk on the way that match ended. I lost that match. I set the stage for this whole no more shots at the title. This is on me. I'm going to eat, I made the bet I'm going to lie in it. This is like Tim Storm. I love Tim Storm, man. I can't go on about him, but like to me, this is one of his 2 or 3 greatest moments on the microphone. Love it. Absolutely love it.
No, he's just so believable and so legitimate, just a real guy and somebody you can respect. John Farmer in the chat saying, Tim Storm doesn't curb grades.
Hey, no, he didn't. That's good, man. Like
and hey, Roscoe, stay tuned. Roscoe, for anybody who doesn't know, Roscoe is like the biggest Jack Stane fan in the world. Like he is constantly on about Jack Stane. And so props to you, Roscoe. This Tuesday night on NWA, you're going to see Tim Storm versus Jack Stane. And I'm happy. I think about you every time I see that is going to happen. Like I think about Roscoe. I think, man, dude, this guy, he's
that's a big match, man. That's a main event match. I mean, and I think you may have said this yesterday. I think it was for people who don't know, Tim Storm won the NWA World's title from Jack Stane. This is a battle between 2 former world's champions. So shout out to Roscoe, man. I love Jack Stane, man. He's cool. He's cool. And man, that's a main event in any arena, anywhere.
No, that's 100% true. Yeah. We definitely talked about that on the review for episode 1 and 2, or either Will was, I can't remember. I think Will even mentioned.
All this stuff blends together, man. There's so much stuff going in the community and the fam, so.
We do some of it and it blends together for us. So it's tough. Like but I think Will was talking about, like, he didn't know anything about Tim Storm and couldn't find much out about him, except that he beat Jack Stane for the NWA World title. That's where he originally got the championship.
Yeah.
So that'll be an exciting match. Back to episode 3. You get Galley at the podium with Tim Storm, and I mean, I think we kind of covered it. Tim Storm's just basically just being very gracious for the opportunity. He talks about Mama Storm, which like last episode 2 was the first time he mentioned Mama Storm, which immediately like props Mama Storm chants, and that has still carried on until this day. And Mama Storm is as over as anybody else. So add her to the women's division, I guess. And you get Eli Drake out because Tim Storm's saying that he's got a lot of thinking to do about what he does from here, because he says, I think you were alluding to this, that he made his bed and he has to lie in it. He had his last opportunity at the NWA 10 pounds of gold. And if you're in the business and you're not going for that, then what are you there for?
Yeah.
And now he can't go for that anymore. He gave up. I mean, that was his last chance. But Eli Drake interrupts, and Eli Drake comes out and says, like you're saying all this and you got a lot of stuff to think about. And maybe the 10 pounds of gold's not in your immediate future, but maybe there's some other gold that you and I could go for. And Tim seems to consider it, but eventually says, you know what? Because Eli says, Mama Storm was always just worried that you wouldn't give up. Mama Storm, I'm sure, would just care about you keeping on. And Tim says, all right, I don't want to disrespect Mama Storm, so I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll think about it. And he leaves.
Right. Yeah, he says something along the lines of like, we're here worrying about this and that, but now she's got to worry about Tim Storm being a quitter. And that you can tell that kind of resonates with him, Very powerful. Again, this to me, there's one other moment in this episode that's still to come, but I think like this is the most important moment in the episode. This sets up a lot of what's going to happen here in the next few weeks.
Well, I'll tell you, you see Eli Drake here too. And one thing I've noticed about Eli throughout the whole thing is what's real fun about that guy is, besides, I mean, yeah, he looks tough. He looks like a wrestler, all of that. He's great on the mic, but he, like Nick Aldis, I think where they connected, I think even in the next episode that's coming up, Nick Aldis will make a comment about the comparisons that people make between the two. But Eli's a chess player, just like Aldis. Like they've got that common bond that like Eli's always like feels like he's thinking ahead. Like, all right, what's the thing I can do right now? What situation am I in? How do I use this to my advantage? And so he sees Tim Storm out at the podium. You get the impression he's like, well, maybe this guy and I can be tag team champions. So let's make something happen there. That's a step. He's already promised earlier on that anybody with gold around your waist, he's coming for you. Yeah. So maybe this is his first opportunity to do something like that. So I do dig that about Drake. Moving on, the spiritual advisor invisible hair cream commercial comes on, and if you order now, you get the invisible voice cream. Hey, what's your opinion on the commercials that NWA Powerrr has?
Love them, man. I love them, and it's like half of them, like they interweave legitimate commercials, like the Austin Idol school, with like clearly things that are caricature, like this one. But I love the commercials, and I really like. I love the spiritual advisor, man. I think she's something about her. I mean, she is. Yeah. I think she's freaking hot. I think she's cool. I love her accent.
We're on the same page. Look at that. Everybody gives me crap about it, but I am all about the spiritual advisor. I love it.
You remember back the Josephus and spiritual advisor bar scene.
Oh no, dude. We're exactly the same. I was exactly there with you.
Man, this is my. Oh man, I love me some spiritual advisor, boy.
that's one of my favorite segments that the NWA has produced. Period, is that bar scene. I love that stuff. Roscoe's in the chat. For those who are caught up on current events, saying, "Wait, are you hinting that Eli Drake will turn on James Storm?" If you're just now starting the binge watch, that might not make sense to you. I will say to Roscoe though, and anybody who's current. Does that mean he'll turn on James Storm? I'm saying Eli Drake is playing chess, and he's assuming you're all playing checkers. So I would not put anything past Eli Drake.
Man, Eli Drake too. He's one of those guys like, I never really felt Eli Drake. They made this big deal about him coming to NWA, and I remember like in his Impact days, he'd be like, "Let me talk to you, dummy." I never liked that dummy thing. I was like, dude, don't denigrate me. You don't know me. But seeing him, you know what I'm saying? I wrote a doctoral dissertation on the Battle of Chickamauga. Don't denigrate me, bro. You know what I'm saying? But seeing him in person at the taping, like I was captivated. I was like, oh man, Eli Drake has really, really, really grown on me over here. So it's neat to kind of go back and see him in that scene. I know we're going back a little bit, but yeah, Eli Drake, I 100% agree, man. This is a chess player. Assuming everyone else is playing checkers. That's perfect. I love that.
Yeah, I think that he, by the way, will come into his own a little bit later on in the series. Like I'm thinking obviously of the Christmas episode and that sort of thing. Like Eli really breaks out in the NWA at that point. The Shoes of a Champion, for those of you who don't know. Roscoe's in the chat. What? WTF is Chickamauga. So Roscoe's over in Australia. So
well, we had this little thing here called the war between the states, or the American Civil War. So it's all.
You can learn anything on the live stream.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool.
Well, we'll save it for another episode. We'll let Dr. Stinson recite his dissertation. For
you don't want to hear that. I think my dissertation, they provide this to the public for sale. I think I've sold 4 copies since 2010. So that's like
Nick Aldis in the chat saying Eli has really come leaps and bounds since he's been around me.
I agree. Yeah.
So
I agree. I know the champ is being a little tongue in cheek there, but he really has. Eli has come around, and I think Eli is going to be one of those big time main event stars here in the NWA. And I had totally 100% envisioned an epic feud between Aldis and Eli Drake along the lines of a Flair Steamboat feud, because they have similar ring styles. They have similar builds, similar looks. Aldis, of course, I just, that feud is going to happen. And I don't see Aldis is not going to lose the belt to Eli Drake. Don't get me wrong. But that is going to be epic, man. I cannot wait to see that. Boom.
Yeah, I mean,
you got me pumped, man.
No. I'm telling you, I think the end game for Eli Drake is always a world championship match against Nick Aldis. He makes that pretty clear, but he also seems to. It's interesting with him throughout the series so far. I will say that it's though he learned that like just approaching this thing head on, like ramming your head into the doorway, like to get that shot is not going to be the way you ever get him. So he's like, all right, there's a lot of people shooting for this thing.
And he's always saying, this is the NWA. This is not how we do things in the NWA. There's a pecking order and there's a procedure by which you attain this right to get your shot. And so that's what Eli's learning, and Nick does that so well. So, or the champ, I'm sorry, I'm calling by his first name. Sorry, champ.
Right. Josephus is out for an apology. He wants James Storm. Colt comes out instead. Colt Cabana says he's shooting his little finger guns. He's playing around. Puts on the cowboy hat and stuff. Josephus seems a little irritated. And well, just to get into it, Colt's there, and Josephus says he wants to apologize for how he's acted. He ends up shaking Colt's hand, but also throws some powder in his face, which Jim Cornette calls medicated foot powder, is what that is, apparently. And Josephus proceeds to beat up on Colt Cabana, throws him in the ring, gives him a beat down. James Storm runs out, though, who Josephus originally was going to apologize to, I should say. But James Storm runs out at this point and waits for Josephus to turn around, hits him with a super kick, and knocks him out. It's worth noting at this point that James Storm and Colt Cabana had quite a feud going on. For those of you who weren't aware, it was going on in Ring of Honor a little bit back from NWA 70. No, not NWA 70. I apologize. Crockett Cup, when Colt Cabana beat Willie Mack for the national title, and James Storm came out and he challenged Colt Cabana, or said he was interested in it. It was kind of James Storm's first introduction to NWA fans. And James Storm wanted Colt Cabana for the title, but Colt ended up injuring his leg. James Storm pestered the hell out of Colt Cabana until he got that title shot. Like Colt put it on the line at Ring of Honor, one of their tapings, and injured leg and all, and James Storm was able to take the win, and he won the national title. So James Storm is your national championship or champion here. And Josephus has been stirring up some stuff. James Storm easily takes him out. But if you're wondering why James Storm might be interested in giving the super kick immediately after to Colt Cabana, who is in the ring, this is why. Colt Cabana is out there, and James Storm starts to deliver it, but Colt slips out of the ring and waves him off. You can see that there's something coming to a head between James Storm and Colt Cabana. Colt clearly wants some revenge on James Storm.
Yeah.
That's a little catch up for those of you who have only ever seen Power. You might have missed some of that build up. Hopefully that wasn't too long winded. Do you have something? I'm sorry, bro.
I'm just like James Storm, man. My wife's got a little James Storm crush. I'm like, whatever. He's not all that.
Hey, man.
I like James Storm, man. I remember him mostly from his tag team days back in TNA. You know, he was doing a lot of stuff back before the whole cowboy thing. And but really, this little what you alluded to between Cabana and Storm that's coming up is cool. It's a good little angle. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've got a lot of potential for Colt. Yeah, anyway, doesn't matter. Let's move on. Galley gets Aldis and Camille out to ringside, and Galley, obviously, as we alluded to at the top of the show, has made his promise to just focus strictly on business. But and that was unintentional, by the way.
They're in your mind, bro. They're in your mind.
It's true. Aldis talking about the NWA's cooking right now. There's a horse race for the 10 pounds of gold. And fortunately for his bank account and everybody else, there's a lot of challengers. People yell out, Eli Drake. He says, yes. They yell out, James Storm. He says, yes. And they yell out, Josephus. And he says, we'll probably have to talk about that one. And And then the champ actually alludes to, like, I don't know, maybe it's not even here. Maybe I got to look elsewhere. Maybe I got to find a challenger somewhere outside of the NWA so far. What's a person like you thinking during this time, Mr. Stinson? Like, you're obviously a big Josephus fan as well. So the champ kind of waved him off, but not only waved Josephus off, also is kind of like people are chanting for James Storm and Eli Drake, and Nick Aldis is kind of like, yeah, probably, but maybe the right person's not here yet.
It's like what we said earlier, like when you're a competitor doing a legitimate athletic competition, you have a lot of serious contenders, and those are all James Storm. And fast forwarding a little bit, we know that Aldis and Storm have their little run together. But Josephus, I've always been a huge Josephus fan, and he's part of the thing that, he was part of the founding of the NWA. I mean, they were in GQ magazine, him and Billy Corgan were, as like I think this was before NWA like started, but it was Corgan and Josephus together. He's one of the four pillars. I think like Nick Aldis, Josephus, Tim Storm, and who's the other? Well, I won't waste time thinking about that, but he's one of the big ones. And I think that him alluding to going outside the NWA, I liked it, because that's what a world champ. That if you have a world championship, not only are you international, and there are a couple of promotions that do that. The WWE travels internationally. The AEW doesn't. New Japan does. The NWA does. Obviously, we've had the only world title championship defense in China. But a world championship should also be cross-promotional. So it doesn't offend me that Nick Aldis would say, I'll look to other promotions. But remember, the kicker on that was, I think he said something like, I'm not going to have any trouble finding any competition. So it doesn't offend me as an NWA fan to say he'll look to Ring of Honor or to somewhere else, because I think a world's champion will carry that belt. And by the way, this is the only promotion that does that. This is the only promotion that defends cross-promotionally, and therefore, in my mind, this is the only really truly world's title. So.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that's an excellent point to bring up, is that he's clearly stating, like, if you got for the right price, the NWA champion will take on any challengers, anytime, anywhere. There you go. Joe Galli. I don't know if Joe Galli's supposed to come off admirable here, but I was irritated with Joe Galli because he says, like, at this point, he's like, no disrespect to the champ, but I do have to ask. I've been trying to pursue something, and so I wanted to talk to Camille, and the champ's immediately like, isn't it funny that every time somebody says like no disrespect or whatever, that it is disrespectful, and but go ahead, ask Camille something if you've just got to do it. So Galli, breaking every rule that had been established for him, does ask Camille why she hasn't talked and what her thoughts are, and Camille chooses not to speak. And Aldis says, so let that be the end of it. When she's ready, she doesn't want to talk to you, and when she's ready to talk, you'll be the first to know. And that's it. And so, what was your take on so far when you were watching this? Like, as far as Joe Galli's pursuit of Camille and her voice.
Man, I like Joe Galli. I do. I'm like you. I was like, come on, man. She's not. We know she's not going to talk. And then like, there was a show that you were on. What was it, man? You were talking about like the Old Testament versus the New Testament, and like how the new is like revealing the old. And so we get to Camille's biography that she put out a week ago or so, and she goes back and you're thinking, man, it all makes sense. She's like, I'm not going to let my words permeate me. I'm going to let my actions define me, and I'll talk when I'm ready to. So I'm like, that like spoke volumes looking back on this episode. Like, Nick Aldis is not going to tell her not to talk. She's choosing not to, because this is a woman who is about to make her own statement in her own way, in her own time. And but I was like, I like Joe Galli, but he annoys me a little bit from time to time. But I think that's kind of his role. He's supposed to The other thing I would point out is this fabulous suit. And I saw this on Twitter today. That is not a flannel suit. That is a plaid suit. So y'all got that right.
No, you're right. No, Nick always with the fabulous suits, and you're 100% right too. I think as far as Galley and his role here, he is definitely that pesky media, just ever pursuing, just trying to get a story and that sort of thing, which can be both good and bad, I suppose. And so he's it's an interesting concept. It's a layered story for sure with all of those people. And then I would be a terrible person if I didn't bring up that the very next segment that we see is the very first promo of the question mark. Just a nice little commercial. Robert Stinson, of all people, should be here for that. Question mark appears. Just a weird 80s style graphics, like some mountains and some talking about Monrovia and rivers and iron and stone and some karate, if you will. So go ahead, Robert.
So for those who don't know, and most of the people on the chat right now are probably going to know, because I think we've got some people who follow the NWA fan content and the NWA's content, but if you're watching Monrovia Unmasked, you're going to see now, if you thought this was weird, now it all makes sense. You're like, oh, this is the Mongrovian style of broadcasting. Every single one of these episodes, I think we've had 3 episodes now of Monrovia Unmasked, same style, same producer, same mindset, all those weird, sort of 80s, for lack of a better term, those psychotronic graphics.
Oh, nice one.
Right. It's cool, man. But again, we had no clue what was about to happen. What was, because when question mark came out, we didn't know about Mongrovian karate. We didn't know about the map. We didn't know about any of that stuff, man. It was just like, it's kind of like with the Thunder Rosa teaser. That's what it is. Like, talk about Eli Drake being a chess player, all these steps ahead. David Lagana and Billy Corgan are chess players that are steps and steps ahead of this. They've thought this out multiple seasons in advance. So this was a fantastic promo, and we had no clue what we were in store for. I didn't know what to expect when I saw this, but now I would just encourage everyone to go to Aaron Stevens' Twitter feed or the question marks, watch all 3 of the current Mongrovian Unmasked episodes, and then go back and watch this. And you're like, man, this all ties in. This is very, very clever how they did this. So anyway, that's my point.
Props to him. I knew Dr. Stinson would have plenty to say about Rob. No. I was just emphasizing the doctor there, just because you know what you're talking about. So he's analyzed it in depth. So all right. So the very next thing that happens is you get Eli Drake out to the ring. There's a little uncertainty. He's got to go up against the Dawsons. Maybe Tim Storm's going to be the partner. Is it? I don't know. And then finally, Tim Storm makes his entrance. He's here. He's here to team up with Eli Drake, take on the Dawson brothers. And it's a nice match, but Eli ends up getting laid out outside the ring, and Tim Storm gets belly bump thing they do, the splash onto the ground, and Tim Storm takes the 1, 2, 3. Dawson's win, and proceed to continue beating up on Tim Storm after the match, pummeling him. And luckily, Eddie Kingston and Homicide come in and make the save, chasing away the Dawsons. In the meantime, Eli Drake goes to check on Tim Storm, and so does the champ. Nick Aldis comes out to look in to see, check on the health of Tim Storm. And you've got both guys in the ring looking him over and also keeping their distance from each other. And that is how this episode ends.
So earlier, Gary, I said that the Tim Storm speech was one of the 2 biggest, most important moments in this episode. And this is the other very critical moment, is Nick Aldis coming out to tend to Tim Storm, to check on him. And now we know why. I'm not going to say why, but this is very, very critical. And for fans who know like your morality plays, and I mean, wrestling that's all it is. It's our modern morality play. And, you know, this is a very, very critical moment. So as you're watching and rewatching and going forward, just note this moment that Nick Aldis comes out to tend to Tim Storms, because this is very important.
Absolutely agreed. And overall, Rob, this is one of the more important episodes. Like when you lay it out, I mean, it's really cool to me how much they introduce so many people just in these first few episodes of NWA Powerrr. They just like introduced, like just slowly but surely, just like really built a roster here, and you start to relate to people and start to care about their characters. Some good quality booking, I think, in these first few episodes of Powerrr.
You think like episode 1 and 2, to me, like episode 3, episode 1 and 2 were awesome for setting that foundation. This is the first really, from like a literary storyline playwright perspective, this is the first critical episode, because 1 and 2, episode 1 or 2 are cleaning up, wrapping up. Now I know that we still got 10 pounds of gold content to do, and they're going to continue with that project, but this is bringing the world up to speed and tying up those loose ends. Episode 3, this is the wellspring of everything that we're at now. Everything that we're at now can be rooted in episode 3, from Thunder Rosa to Question Mark to the dynamic between Tim Storm, Nick Aldis, and Camille, and what that's going to evolve into. This is, Eli Drake, the emergence of James Storm. This is the wellspring episode. So like, if you're like your canon of like the most essential episodes, this might be the most essential episode. So I'm very glad that we got to do this one together.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think I 100% agree with you. It's a pretty important episode, and yeah, you make a good argument that this may be one of the most important. Folks, we appreciate everybody in the chat room for showing up with us today. If you're here right now, hearing my voice or watching us on the screen, we have another live stream happening tonight. I'm just going to say like around 9 o'clock, because I'm just going to shoot her a message and be like, Maddie, it's at 9. Let's just say 9 o'clock. Maybe that's too late for some people. Maybe it's perfect for some people. We're experimenting. We're just hanging out, doing live streams, binge watching NWA Powerrr. My friend Madeline Hoptree is going to be joining us as part of This Is the NWA team, as part of the hashtag NWA fam. Make sure you're using that if you're a fan of the NWA. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you like the video. All of those things. We are grateful for all of you. Dr. Stinson. I'm sorry, Rob. Rob, tell everybody where they can find you online and promote anything you'd like to here.
Okay, I'm on Twitter at rstinson4. Please follow me. You follow me, I'll follow you. You put me over, I put you over. You know, that's how we do it in the NWA family. We elevate each other. We want to get that hashtag NWA fam out. I think I'm gonna try to get some T-shirts made and get us to start really pushing that NWA fam community, so we can make that a big deal. This is a very important thing that's going on right now. It's the most vibrant community in wrestling, and I think that we have a relationship with our talent, and the talent and the community both are pulling the weight during the quarantine crisis to sustain our product and elevate our brand and promote our brand. I'm also on YouTube. My channel used to be called Table Talk. And I have a show that I do with my 18-month-old called Table Talk with Petra. And it's basically her growing up and her life lessons. And, we do some wrestling stuff on there too. But I've changed the name of the channel to Stinson Vision, because Piper and I have started a project called Piper's Notes. And it's basically a channel where we try to do some crossover stuff, bring in some wrestling talent, and do something that's really not distinctively wrestling related. We want to get on and talk about pop culture, theater, other things like that. And Gary's been a guest before. The champ who's on the chat today, he's been an awesome guest. Thunder Rosa's been a guest. So you can find that the channel is called Stinson Vision. If you go to any of our Twitter pages, you can find links to our stuff and our content. So I want to put that over. I'd like to put over Will's channel. Elder Sauer and Adam Rattel, I want to put them over as well. You know, what they do with 10 Pounds of Podcast. Everything that NWA puts out, man, we are in this together, and let's just band together as a family and make this. Let's just blow the roof off of everything and just elevate our company and make sure that at some point, everybody in the world, I don't care who you are, everybody's in the world is going to know that the NWA is what's up. This is the most important thing going on. That's what I believe, and that's where my heart's at.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect message to end this whole thing on. Again, guys, if you are around tonight and you're just bored, we'll call it the late night show, the Tonight Show about the NWA. We're going to be covering episode 4 of NWA Powerrr tonight. As always, I am at This Is Gary Horn on all of the social media stuff. Like Robert Stinson said there, that's important stuff. The community, the NWA community is what we're all about. Hashtag NWA fam. This is exclusive right here about the shirt idea. That's cool. And we should.
Bro. I've got my own. I don't know if you can see this, but I've got my. Well, you can't see it there, but I got my own little T-shirt press there that I use to make shirts for my athletic teams at school. But
nice
shirts happen, bro.
Oh, that's perfect. I love it. That's great. I'm sure we're all on board for that. And so yeah, tune in to Mr. Stinson here and at This Is Gary Horn at the NWA Pod. If you don't, for some reason, already follow us on the social medias, and we're all about elevating the NWA, of course, at NWA. And you have to have subscribed to their channel if you're even listening to this conversation.
If you don't, just get off right now.
This is going to be a pretty boring conversation if you don't already know them. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. We really are grateful for you hanging out with us, and we're just trying to put out some new content, live streams, places for you to hang out. Everybody in the chat, shout out to you guys. Michael Roscoe, John Farmer, Nick Aldis, the champ, was here. Just everybody that showed up. Thank you guys so much. And thanks for watching. We'll see you again tonight, hopefully. You guys take care.